Greetings and welcome to the introduction to astronomy. In this week's exploration of the solar system, we are going to talk about the Ulysses spacecraft and its exploration of our sun. So what was the Ulysses craft? Well, we see a picture of it here. It was launched on October 6th of 1990 and designed as a solar probe. But not just a solar probe. Its mission was to study the sun at all latitudes. So normally when we travel within the solar system, we're in the equatorial plane. And we would see, if we went to travel the sun, toward the sun, we would see the equator. The poles would be much harder to see. So the mission of this was to study at all latitudes, which meant we had to change its orbit, and we had to bring it out of the plane of the solar system. Now this can be done with just fuel, but it takes a lot of energy to break away like that and to get into an orbit like this that is not within the plane of our solar system. So what was done was to instead fly by Jupiter. And that way we could use the energy of the giant planet and travel out to Jupiter from Earth. And we can see in the chart here as it travels that the object would travel out from Earth, travel out, and then make a loop around Jupiter to put it into an orbit that would then go up and above and come back down closer into the sun. And that would allow us to see the polar regions of the sun as well as the equatorial regions, giving us a much better view of the sun and studying parts that we can't really see easily from Earth. Now the studies were done and showed what the detectors were there. What we were looking for was detection of things like the solar wind and the solar magnetic field. So we can get images such as this from Ulysses. Ulysses was not looking to image the sun directly. So it was detecting solar wind particles. It was measuring the magnetic field. And we can see here on the left hand side, well, actually all over, but starting on the left where Ulysses is labeled here, that this is the various measurements that it got around that with an image of the sun from another telescope put in at the same time. So kind of trying to tie the things together, an observation of the sun in ordinary visible and ultraviolet light, and then being able to look at the particle emission as well, to be able to put those together. And that helped us to better understand things like the solar flares. So X-ray studies of the solar flares, which are very important in being able to better understand those and how they affect Earth. So how do they work at the higher latitudes as compared to the lower latitudes, which is what we are used to looking at. Again, that's what we're used to seeing, because those are the latitudes we see directly from Earth. We don't normally get to see the polar latitudes. So sending Ulysses out in this orbit allows us to get a different view of the sun than we get from Earth. Now the mission did end on June 30th of 2009. So quite a ways from launch till final end of the mission, although part of that was that trip out to Jupiter to put it in the proper orbit, but gave us a much better understanding of our sun and how it works. And of course paved the way for future solar probes that we currently use. So let's go ahead and finish up here with our summary. And what we've looked at today is the Ulysses craft. The Ulysses craft having been launched to study the sun at all latitudes. It was maneuvered using Jupiter's gravity to change its orbit, allowing it to go over the poles of the sun, so that we could see the polar regions that are normally invisible to us here on Earth. And it also studied solar wind and other solar emissions. So that concludes this week's exploration of the solar system on the Ulysses spacecraft to study the sun. We'll be back again next week for another exploration of the solar system. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.